Hello everyone. Today I wanted to cover a term that is really being overly used. Is just too much at this point. So you have a lot of people calling themselves empaths because a person's highly sensitive, or they think they care too much, or they're just pretty much people are just labeling themselves this way too often now. And I've talked to a lot of people that call themselves that, and when I get to talk to them, I get to realize they definitely aren't. You know, an empath is a double-edged sword where it's like, yeah, you are more empathic, you do feel more, you notice things more, but it's more an altruistic thing. It's not a selfish thing. If you have narcissistic personality disorder or you're borderline, it is a selfish thing because you're very sensitive, because you're always worried about yourself and somebody hurting you or abandoning you. So an empath doesn't feel for those reasons. Just because you might feel something or be sensitive doesn't automatically label you, or you label yourself as an empath. A lot of people are doing this now more than ever, and it's not something that is easy to be, that's for sure. So I'm going to talk about some of the traits that I got from Judith Orloff. She's a MD, and she talks, her book is called An Empath's Survival Guide. But these are just some of the traits that I got from her that I'm going to read off, and I'll talk about each trait from my perspective and then from what people think they have, but it's probably not. So another very popular thing now is virtual signaling, right? Everybody wants to be part of a movement, a group, a political ideology, because they want to make themselves seem better than everybody else. You know, it's like, I know somebody who's a Swami from India, and he's a vegetarian because that's normal. So he comes here to America, and of course, if you're a yoga practitioner, you're a vegan. So I'm upping you. I'm better than you. It's just like, it's just crazy at this point. So a lot of people virtual signal on so many levels, and they think they're better than other people. You know, so being an empath is another thing that people are trying to use to virtual signal. It's not something that you want to be. It's either you are or you aren't. And if you're a sensitive person, it doesn't make you one automatically, because you could be sensitive for many other reasons, and it doesn't make you an empath. So I'm just going to read some of the things here. So it says, one of the traits: empaths are highly sensitive. So are narcissists. So are borderline personality disorder people. Anybody on the cluster B spectrum is highly sensitive. People who are bipolar, people who have mood swings, they're highly sensitive. It doesn't make you an empath, right? So an empath, they're highly sensitive because they're in tune with everything, whether they want to be or not. You can't help but tune into things, just like a radio transmitter picking up certain frequencies. It just happens. You don't want to, but when you're in that person's presence or an environment as an empath, you pick it up, and it's not a defensive mode or mechanism like with a narcissist or a borderline. It's just you become in tune with things, and if it doesn't vibe with you, it starts to drain you. And it's not something where you start to feel fearful, you know, because look, I was in the Marines and a firefighter and a competitive martial arts fighter. I was able to do those things with no problem because I could put myself into a certain mode where I don't let certain things affect me because I have to fulfill that task at hand. So it says empaths are naturally giving, spiritually open, and good listeners. Yes, this is what attracts people to you, because they want to talk to you because they feel comfortable around you. On the other hand, a narcissist, or for sure, wants to be a good listener because they want to manipulate you. They want to know all your faults. They want to know what scares you, what your trauma in your past was like, your favorite things, what you love, what you don't love. They're trying to create this inventory to manipulate you. An empath doesn't do that. People want to share things with us because they feel comfortable where we're not going to judge them and we are going to listen. And that's just the way it is. You know, and as people tell us things that we don't even ask about, and that's another thing. A narcissist will ask you certain things because they're trying to create some data on you. People will just tell us stuff without us asking, and it's like we don't use it against them. We just we get to know them for who they are a little bit more quickly, and that's just part of it. Let's see. Through thick and thin, they're there for you, world-class nurturers. Yes, we are. And that's the one thing that we have to learn as empaths is we shouldn't have to be there for everybody, because in the end, people will easily use that to manipulate us, use and abuse us. And that's why a lot of times we do attract people who are on the cluster B spectrum, because they feel safe around us. And they feel something that they don't have, and they want it from us. And then eventually we start to get abused because we have something they can't have because they don't have it. So that's just the facts. Let's see. But they can easily have their feelings hurt. Empaths are often told that they are too sensitive and need to toughen up. Not really, usually that happens in relationships, if anything. And if you end up with somebody who's on the cluster B spectrum, they will use your kindness and your sensitivity to gaslight you and devalue you, because everything is, you're so sensitive, you're such a sensitive person, oh, you took it the wrong way. This is all part of gaslighting. And being an empath, you cannot turn it on and off. You can't help but feel a certain way. You can control your reaction to things and how you engage with people, but you can't just shut that off, otherwise you're not being yourself. And that's another thing. An empath knows who they are. Somebody who's on the cluster B spectrum has no sense of self. That's a big difference. Let's see. Empaths, this is number 2. Empaths absorb other people's emotions. Empaths are highly attuned to other people's moods, good and bad. They feel something sometimes to an extreme. They take on negativity such as anger or anxiety, which is exhausting. They are around peace and love. Their bodies take these on and nourish. That didn't make sense, that sentence, but it's okay. But that's another thing. It's like we're attuned to people's emotions. We just are. And it's not that we want to be or don't want to be. It's just this is how we're built. We're like a big receiver, and our channel could tune into any radio station. And somebody who's cluster B tunes into people's moods because they're using it to either manipulate them or to regulate their defensive modes. So it's a totally different thing. If you go to a place where if you're around a negative person and you're an empath, you feel drained. It's like you need time alone afterwards. And it doesn't matter if you engage with the person or not, you just can't help but pick up that energy. Even if the person doesn't open their mouth, you could feel it. So it's not something that you want to feel, you just can't help it because this is how you're built. Somebody who's a narcissist on cluster B spectrum, they're always on high alert because of their defensive mechanisms that were developed at childhood that never developed into adulthood. So they're ready to respond and fight to protect their fragile self. So it's a totally different thing. Let's see, many empaths are introverted. Empaths become overwhelmed in crowds. This is number 3, which can amplify their empathy. They tend to be introverted and prefer one-on-one contact or small groups. If an empath is more extroverted, they prefer limiting how much time they can be in a crowd or at a party. So it doesn't make a difference if you think you're an extroverted empath or not. You still can't be around big crowds or certain people for long periods of time because you still absorb their energy. It's like you just can't help that. I know I'm an introvert, but I call myself a sociable introvert for a limited time. So I could only be around people for so long before it starts to wear on me, especially if it's a bad or negative, person. I wouldn't even say bad person, but somebody who's just negative all the time and stuff. It's like, you can't help but feel that. So if you're around people that you're comfortable with and you know are good people and you feel they're happy, they're loving, they're caring, you could be around these people all the time because you're one of those people too. So it helps keep you stable, because when you're around somebody who's really negative, you're still stable, but it's like you could feel that turmoil within them, and that really bothers you, and you don't want to be around it because that's not how you are. Cluster B people could be extroverts, right, with the grandiose to lower somebody in. And then they could be somewhat introverted, meaning that they're very private. But their privacy is for you not to know who they are because they're ashamed of who they are because of their mental or their personality disorder. So it's a very, very different thing. Being in crowds, yeah, it's like I just don't do well in crowds. It's just, I never did since a child. And that's the thing, you don't become an empath at 18. Some mental illnesses develop at early adulthood. Some of them you're kind of born with, but an empath, you've always been this way. You just wonder why you were so different. So it's not like you became an empath after some toxic relationship. That's just not the way it works. Everybody's sensitive after a breakup. Doesn't make you an empath. I've talked to a bunch of people that think they're empaths because they just got out of a relationship with a narcissist. It has nothing to do with it at all. You've either been one your whole life or you're not. It's like you don't all of a sudden become one after a bad relationship because now that person has zero empathy and now you do, where now all of a sudden you label yourself. It just doesn't work that way. And number 4, empaths are highly intuitive. Empaths experience the world through their intuition. It is important for them to develop their intuition and listen to their gut feelings about people. They will help empaths find positive relationships and avoid energy vampires. So some of the stuff I'm reading doesn't make too much sense to me, but it's okay, I'll make sense out of it. So yeah, we have a high intuition. And the thing is, usually when you don't listen to it is when something bad happens. So like anytime I've been around somebody who's toxic or even a narcissist, my body reacted. I picked up everything. I even started to almost talk like them and act like them or have the same physical expressions because it's like my body's tuning into them. And this person was a covert one, but it's like I still felt it. And it's like you just can't help it. But the thing is, as you start to develop and know what you have as an empath, you could start to go, oh, I feel this. I never felt this before, but this is similar to something I didn't experience before with this other person. It's like, oh, that was a warning sign. What do I do with it? What didn't I do with it last time that made me get punished for not listening to my gut feeling, which is my intuition? Let's go to number 5. Empaths need alone time. As super responders, being around people can drain an empath, so they periodically need alone time to recharge their batteries. Even a brief escape prevents emotional overload. Empaths like to take their own cars when they could go places, so they can leave when they please. Yeah, I mean, an empath can only be in certain environments for so long, depending on the environment. I know the best thing for an empath is having alone time, whether it's silence, meditation, being around nature, going for walks alone, doing yoga. All these things are really good for an empath. This is to help you recharge, and the thing that helps you recharge is being in nature more than anything else, and good company is super important too. And also reading uplifting things, not watching negative stuff on the media and the news. They probably cover this in the next one. So let's see. So alone time is important, and this is why if you're in a relationship, you have to explain to the person that you can't be glued to them 24/7 when you need some space and some time alone. And it has nothing to do with not caring about them or loving them. This is just what will keep you functioning at your optimum. Okay, number 6. Empaths can become overwhelmed in intimate relationships. Too much togetherness can be difficult for an empath, so they may avoid intimate relationships. Downtime, they are afraid of being engulfed and losing their identity. For empaths to be at ease in a relationship, the traditional paradigm for being a couple must be redefined. So I just said this pretty much. And then this is the opposite of a borderline personality disorder or a narcissist. They want to enmesh with you. It's like they don't want you to have any alone time. It's like they want you 24/7. It doesn't have to be physically. It could be just, where are you? What are you doing? They text you didn't respond fast enough. Oh, they only call you through video chat because they don't trust you. They want to see who's behind you, where you are. and this is just, it becomes very overwhelming. And then the thing that happens with an empath, since you're trying to prove your love to them and your kindness and your goodness, you allow them to erode away all your boundaries. And this is what a narcissist loves. So next thing you know, you become enmeshed with them, and next thing you know, you're giving 24/7 and they take 24/7. So it becomes a really toxic dance in hell, which you really want to avoid. If you notice the person's very selfish and manipulative, and they gaslight and they put you down, and you have to constantly prove yourself to them, get the hell out of that relationship, because you have the capacity to stay in there for a long time, longer than normal people, because of your empathy, your kindness, and your compassion, and looking for the good in other people. But some people don't have good in them. It's a sad thing to say, but what I've learned all these years, you have some people who are just, they don't have anything in them that is good. You can look at Hitler and say, oh, I found something good in him, but that's you projecting onto it. So that's another thing. So when you're in a relationship, you need somebody as an empath that can understand that you need alone time. When somebody's a borderline or a narcissist, they want to control you at all costs, because that's part of their mental illness. So you allowing that, you set yourself up. So the thing that you have to learn as an empath is to be non-codependent, to have strong boundaries, and to be assertive. These are major keys in changing your life. But the first thing you need to do is be aware. If you're not, none of those things will come along. Number 7, this is going to be a long video, sorry, but we're almost there. Empaths are targets for emotional vampires. Yes. If somebody's, I'm not going to even read this because I don't even need to at this point, but people who are emotional vampires, that are drama queens, that need somebody to vent on, and somebody to listen to them, and somebody to just complain to. An empath is perfect because they're the best listeners, but this will never end. And then the price that you pay as an empath is you leave that conversation, that person, or that environment totally drained. None of this stuff rubs off on you where it changes you. And this is one thing that narcissists don't understand. They go, well, if you were abused, or if you were treated this way or that way, then you become like us. No, we never do. It's just we need alone time to process stuff and to let stuff go. But it doesn't change who we are. We start to change things when it comes to just boundaries and being assertive, but who we are never will change. It's like, this is our nature, too bad. It sucks in a way, but it is what it is. We don't change. It's like we still remain giving, caring people. And it's not something you run around as a trophy, but it's just how you are. Just like a narcissist. It doesn't matter how much you love them, how kind you are to them. They're always going to be narcissists. They're always going to have that cycle of idealization and devaluing you and gaslighting you and abusing you. That's never going to change. And this is when you're in that relationship, you have to realize that so you could get out of it. Because if you don't, that cycle repeats, and then either you get ghosted or discarded, and then they take you back, and then they create flying monkeys, and it just never changes. Why are all these terms so common for narcissistic relationships? Because all of them do this. It doesn't make a difference. Let's see. Empaths become replenished in nature. Yeah, we already talked about that. So when you need to recharge and you can't be in nature, just go. If you're in a city, go sit out in the park by yourself. Be somewhere where it's nice and quiet, where you're around nature, whether it's the beach, a park, a forest, or just for a walk in the neighborhood. Just do something. Listen to calming music, put incense on, meditate, do some exercise that's not aggressive. These are things that really help. Empaths have, this is number 9, we have 2 left. Empaths have highly tuned senses. Yeah, we talked about this before. It's like an empath's nerves can be frayed by noise, smells, or extensive talking. Yeah, so, I have a super high sensitive smell. I know it got enhanced from being in the fire department. My sense of touch, my hearing. I have ADHD, so it's like I notice a lot of noise and stuff. I can't help it, but we're in tune to all these things. Our senses are really, I wouldn't even say at a higher level, but they're more tuned in than we want it to be, but we can't help it because that's just the way it is. So it's almost like if you think of like where either Spider-Man or Superman's trying to figure out how to use their powers as they start to develop it, right? When a Superman, he goes through puberty and gets this sense of hearing, he can hear anything. It's like, ours is kind of similar to it, not in that extent, of course, because that's crazy, but you can't help but notice things. So you learn how to focus yourself, and meditation is one great thing for that. So you learn how to tune into things. You learn how to almost not shut things out, but try to almost focus where other things surrounding become a little more like the background noise, where it doesn't affect you as much. And number 10, empaths have huge hearts, but sometimes give too much. This is the biggest problem. It's like we just give and we give and we give. This is what draws the toxic people into our lives, because we allow it if we don't have boundaries, strong, healthy boundaries, and we're not assertive. The best thing you could say as an empath to help protect yourself is a one-word answer that's a complete sentence, and that's no, which is very hard for us to do. We're yes people. We want to help everybody. We want everybody to feel good. We want everybody to feel loved. We don't want anybody to feel like they're neglected. So next thing you know, you're running on empty, trying to make everybody else happy because you want them to be happy, which makes you a people pleaser. And that's another problem. You become a people pleaser. And then that could be because you're codependent and don't even know it. So all these factors are huge. You are a big-hearted person. If you're a male or a female, or a non-binary person, and you're watching a certain show, you could start to cry for something simple. You could have, or just tears running down your eyes because you feel the emotions through TV. That's why it's hard to watch the news with the violence and all the toxic shit that goes on. It's like you could feel that. So why would you want to tune into that? So even the TV that you're watching, the music that you're listening to, the people that you're around, all these things as an empath you pick up on, and this you just feel. Can it alter your mood? Of course it can, but your mood is stable. But of course it could start to shift you slowly in one direction or the other. Your moods are not erratic and dramatic. This is what a cluster B person, they can't control their moods. How they feel is how they react. With us, we could feel and we could put ourselves in a situation where we're like, okay, I understand how that person feels that way. Maybe they don't feel it, but this comes over with time and maturity and understanding yourself. So if you happen to be an empath, look at some books that will help you with that. And one popular book is the one that I mentioned before in the beginning of the video. I'm sorry, I think it's an Empath Survival Guide by Judy Orloff, MD. So look at that book. See if it fits you when she starts talking about things, because a lot of the stuff you're gonna have in common, and some stuff you might not have in common at all. You're like, well, I'm a sensitive person, but I don't feel like that. I don't feel this. I don't feel that. It's like, well, that's good. Everybody should be happy with who they are. You don't have to become something to be better or label yourself. It's like, if somebody has borderline personality disorder or bipolar, it's like, and they've been diagnosed, it's like, well, this is what you have. It doesn't make you a horrible person, but this is what you have, and this is what you have to work with. As an empath, this is what you have. This is what you have to work with. But don't say, oh, because I'm a sensitive person, or I got to have a bad relationship where I became more empathetic, where now I'm an empath. It has nothing to do with it. Also, empaths do have a lot of psychic abilities. Some are controllable, some are not controllable, depending on your gift. So a lot of empaths are highly sensitive people, but not all highly sensitive people are empaths. And this is something that some people have to settle with, and it's okay. And if you notice your moods shift all the time and you think you're an empath, maybe you have to go for some type of test to see if you have some type of mental illness. And it's not to be stigmatized. It's something, once you know if you have something, you could work with it. There's so many amazing things out there in different modalities and treatments and therapies out there where you could actually get help to have a better life. But the thing that you need the most as an empath, you need to be assertive. You need to learn how not to be a people pleaser, so you're not codependent. You have to set healthy boundaries and don't let anybody bend them at all, because they'll keep going, and that's what the narcissist does. And then give yourself alone time. And if you're with somebody that doesn't understand it, explain it to them. And if they don't get it, then it might not work out, but that's okay, because you have to take care of yourself, because an empath usually worries about taking care of everybody else prior to taking care of themselves. So this is some information. I hope that helps. It's not putting anybody down. It's just, I see too many people saying they're empaths, and they're definitely not. I mean, some of the stuff that people tell me is so far out there, where it's like, yeah, you're definitely not. But everybody wants to be special. Everybody wants to label themselves as something. Oh, I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm part of this movement. It's just be yourself. Everybody's unique and different in their own way, but we could all love each other equally and care for each other by having compassion and kindness towards one another, and being understanding and allowing people to be who they are. Nobody has to be part of some tribal group to be great. Just be yourself, and people will love you for who you truly are.